We're good? Good evening, everybody. We'll call this meeting to order, October 12th, 2022. Councilman Joe Armand.
Here.
Councilman David Budrus.
Present.
Councilman Stephen Hardy.
Here.
Councilman Peter Davenport.
Present.
Okay. And Councilman Levi Shank. And it is 7:02 when we call the meeting to order. We've had roll call. Visitors who would like to make their names known on our list, please state your names.
Chris Moritz.
Mark Robert.
Stan Roth.
Troy Crawford.
Thank you. Thank you, visitors, for coming. The first thing we'll take care of here is to approve the minutes from September 14th. If I could get somebody to make a motion to that.
Wait for 1 second.
Yeah,
Should approve of the minutes.
we'll see.
Was the motion made?
No.
That's fine.
Move the minutes be accepted as presented.
I'll second it.
So we've got a motion to accept the minutes as presented by Councilman Davenport and seconded by Councilman Budrus.
You have an extra pen, David?
Floor is open for discussion.
I just have one that was sent out in a later email. There was a corrected minutes. I'm not sure what the
Yes.
corrections were.
It was Joe Armand. His name was spelled wrong right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
And then on the last page.
And on the second page where it mentioned,
I can get one.
This was described wrong.
Try that one.
The last sentence of the minutes, that TD&H was gonna pay the bill, and it said because they authorized work before the permit was done, and it wasn't the permit, it was the Cultural Resources Review.
Yeah, so that was added.
Is that one working?
Okay.
I just saw. Just like an executive session, that whole sentence, the executive session discussed employee pay and last 34 minutes, should it be lasted?
Sure,
Or just-
and lasted, sure.
That's the only thing I saw.
Yeah, we can correct that before we,
I don't know if that's proper English or not.
makes sense. Go ahead, Jerry.
That's why I try to send that out a week ahead of time,
Yeah.
so you can read through it, proofread it, and we can have corrections done prior to this meeting.
Well, I'm not faulting anybody, I just
No.
thought I'd point to Ed. No, stuff happens, computers change it all the time on you when you type.
I'm just trying to explain why I send it out ahead of time.
Do we have to have a motion to make a correction to the minutes?
Just move to accept as corrected.
Okay. I move to accept the minutes as corrected by David.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? So it's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as corrected. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's 4-0. Thank you. Second on the list is to approve the claims for September 9th through the 30th.
A question about 776. James A. Sewell and Associates. What project is that for?
Is that for the
I think that's our wastewater.
It is.
What,
Is that being covered by
It should be.
the loans? Is that a recoverable expense, Jerry? Okay.
That isn't something that gets passed on what they're giving us for the grant and loan money.
Did you hear that, Peter?
I'd have to look into it. I don't know off the top of my head.
For clarification, that is a cost recovery, you said?
I would have thought so, but in some ways, I guess it really doesn't matter because we've already voted to go down that road. So regardless of whether someone pays us to do it or not, we're kind of committed to that road at this point. But I would have thought it would have been.
But this is not that extra, we're not tapping into that extra money we voted on.
No.
No.
Yeah.
is there a motion on the floor yet?
No.
There is not.
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Stephen to approve and seconded by Joe. Any further discussion?
DW excavation, 749. Does that put him flush now, or is he gonna, do we still owe him some more?
Which one, David? 749?
749.
That was the one that we paid out of our COVID money
Okay.
before, and we're trying to get that refunded by the state. We're going to be making another motion here pretty soon to change our date that we put in for an emergency
Right.
back to before that, and we hope that will correct that item.
Is this 46,000?
Yes.
And change, did that include the straw and all that?
No, that's another
a different-
bill
okay.
you haven't seen yet, and
Okay.
that one is actually going under the grant money
Yeah,
from,
okay. Thank you for that clarification.
yeah, this one is the first one.
Is it even appropriate to ask what fund that came out of?
Which one?
Pardon?
Which one, Peter?
749.
ARPA accounts.
Yes, that came out of the money we got from the state, COVID money, as we call it. We got money last year and this year both.
Yeah,
It was,
we
what,
talked about that last meeting.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
Councilman Davenport is still searching the files there. Good, Peter?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
you're waiting for me?
Yes,
I
sir.
apologize.
That's okay.
I didn't hear you.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the check register as presented. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same. 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Number 4 is the check register. Excuse me, that was the claims. Next item is the check register for 9/15 through 9/30.
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve as presented. Any further discussion?
I'm good.
Not for me.
Am I correct in assuming we don't have a librarian yet?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, for Brandon Shaw, 783, is that a full month of, or just half? That's a full month of September, yeah.
Yes.
Only thing I would, well, it don't matter, I guess. I was just gonna say, it's designated September 15th, you know, the mid payrolls, and then it goes to Troy, September 30th, end of the month. And then down it skips, and then it just says September payroll. I don't know if that will be a biggie. I mean, pretty much, it's kind of self-explanatory, but I'm not gonna complain about it, I guess. That's the second half payment is what that is, correct?
Correct. That was the end of the month
Right.
there.
Oh, and let me guess, Brandon didn't work the first part of September.
Brandon is not a full-time
Oh,
employee.
wait.
No, I understand, but he's just getting paid once a month for his hours?
Yes.
Okay, that clarifies that, okay.
There's only 2 that would get 2 checks. That would be Troy and Jerry. Correct.
Is that bi-monthly or, yeah?
Twice a month.
Twice a month, yeah.
15th and the 30th or the 1st, whichever one of those days falls
Yeah.
there.
No worries.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Need a second? I'll
We got it.
second.
It's
Got
been
it.
I thought we had one.
Yeah, we do.
We're ready to accept
We're
it.
ready to vote if everybody's ready.
Ready.
Okay, it's moved and seconded that we accept these as written. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Wonderful.
Jess,
Yes,
I
sir.
don't know, last time I did additions to the agenda, I went too early, but unless I'm missing, I don't see it on the agenda here, but I do have one item that,
It's at the bottom again.
just in the, okay, sorry.
Under additional items.
Yes.
Never mind,
Yeah,
never mind. I was looking too far up the list.
but I'm going to change your agenda up a bit, and I'm going to let Sage get in here and give us a brief update on the Treasurer's Report in case she's got anything else that she needs to do tonight.
Oh, I appreciate that, thank you. Now, or is there,
Right now.
okay. So, as you are all aware, I don't have a treasurer's report that was sent to you via email. I do plan to have that be the next way that it's sent, not on paper. I came down here Monday with the hopes that everything on the laptop was working and everything on the desktop was working as well. And I do not still have single point access to all of the US Bank stuff. Not only that, I don't have LGIP access, which is our investment pool, or BIAS access for my own credentials. The single point essentials one has been an ongoing issue, and because I'm protecting my interest at US Bank along with here, I need my own. And that has been an issue with the corporate side or the government side. I do have an email out to our, what's called an RM, which is relationship manager. I'm waiting for her to get back to me. I sent her that on Monday after I spoke to her in person, or not in person, on the phone, and have not received any updates from her yet. What I can show you guys is that on the desktop, I have uploaded all of the receipts that I have, all of the stuff that Jerry gives me from the deposits into control sheets for each month and separated them. I have went to US Bank and printed the statements and had them waive the fees, but that's a very short-term thing. We're not supposed to waive those fees anymore, and my bankers are not happy that I'm having them waived for this.
How much are the fees?
$7 per statement. So, and I hadn't gotten approval to have that be expensed or anything, so I asked that they're waived. We do waive them on occasion for other customers, so it's not like it's a huge deal that they're being waived for the city right now. But there is other options for Single Point to get the statements so that we can avoid that and avoid that gray area with my interest there and interest here as well. So what I was able to get put together on the desktop was the beginning part of the July Treasury Report, because that's how far back I am. And then when I put it on the flash drive to then transfer it to the laptop to email to you guys, it comes up as just code. And I don't know how to fix that. It shows up just fine on the desktop, does not on the laptop. So I sat here last night for 3 hours and tried to figure it out, could not get anything to go. And I'm a bit frustrated because of the lack of access that is nobody in particular's fault. I mean, I've had help, I've had people that have tried to jump in and fix things for me, and it's just not working. And I'm frustrated, and I don't want you guys to think I'm not taking this seriously.
So what can we do to
Facilitate
get
it.
you
Thank you.
access to things?
That was right.
The Single Point thing is on the US Bank side right now. I'm
Okay.
waiting for, her name is DeWinda, to get back to me. She's the one in charge of all of Western United States right now. So I'm just waiting on her for that. I tried reaching out to the 1-800 number on Monday since I had the day off, and they were closed. But
Yeah.
DeWinda was working, so it's kind of one of those, now I'm a day behind on them.
Okay.
The LGIP thing, I was given the document that needed notarized to give me access to that on Monday. Got it notarized today. It will be in Jerry's hands or on his desk tomorrow when I get off work there. I had to sign it and have it notarized. So, and I can't notarize my own signature, so I had to find one.
So that one's theoretically clear.
Yes, that one, as soon as it gets submitted, I believe, to the state of Washington, then they grant me access, and there's a couple other people on that list that are getting access as well.
Okay.
And then for the bias thing, I don't know how to get access to that.
We'll take care of that.
I do have it on the laptop, but I was using Mike's credentials, and that makes me incredibly uncomfortable. So, and I tried to do it on the laptop, and it wasn't formulated correctly or something for the laptop specifically. I'm not techie at all. So I need to do that on the desktop as well, because it does show up there and gives me all the functionality when I was logging in with Mike.
And just to recap, why are we getting charged for the statements? What's causing that?
We're not right now,
Okay, but why were they charging
Because
us?
they're waived.
because I was having them print them for me at the branch.
Oh, okay, okay.
And there's a $7 statement, whether it's consumer or business, just to have them printed, each statement comes up as $7.
But once you have access, then you can download the statements,
And all you
PDF
get
files,
emails
and we
as soon
can
as they're
print
ready.
them for records and all the rest of it. Got it.
And at that point, I can download them as a PDF, go through and balance them with highlights and all that fun stuff, and then not have paper.
I like that. Have you tried saving those documents that were gibberish? Have you tried to save them in different formats? Save them as a picture, save them as a different type of PDF? Do you have that program?
I don't know.
Okay.
When I plug it in, like I said, to the desktop, it comes up as Excel, and it's great. The formulas aren't translating from one of Mike's control sheets to then make the ones moving forward. So I've also got to work through that. But that's a formulation issue, not a tech issue. It's just me learning how to copy over those formulas. But as far as plugging in a laptop and then trying a different program or application, it just comes up as kind of a memo
Okay.
and gibberish.
Okay.
I can take a look at, I don't know the systems that we're discussing enough to really know, but I'll take a look and see
Okay.
what I can see.
And I
One-
spoke to, go ahead,
No, no.
Steve.
I was just gonna say, one thing I would ask with all your free time, you could just jot down at least in bullet point form. And I'm not meaning to critique Mr. Cronrath with this at all. It had been a while since he started, but what I would do when I had turnover with people I managed is to make sure that we note the transition items so that whoever comes after you, we have the things to start working down day one, because it sounds like we're going through some discovery on access and that kind of stuff. And so capture it, even if it's in bullet point form. Doesn't have to be something that we would receive right yet, but just make sure that we don't let these things pass into forgetfulness, and then rediscover them all over again when whoever succeeds you comes in. So.
Right. Okay, absolutely.
So I spoke to Dewinda.
Dewinda,
I spoke to her a month ago. Would you like me to call her
you're welcome to.
and see if I can extract any problems that she has on the tip of her tongue that maybe we can solve easily?
Yeah, do you still have her contact information?
I do on a note, but if you've got it
I do in the back.
sometime, yeah,
Yeah.
or email it to me, that's just fine. I'll give her a call tomorrow morning and see if we can't maybe help a little bit.
Okay.
Check your treasurer email. I sent you a bunch of stuff today.
Oh, okay. My laptop's back there because I, for some reason, don't have enough internet at home to load anything. So it's no longer a remote position. I have to be here in order to make all of it work. So.
I sent you out the LGIP statements,
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
and there's some in your basket here too.
Was that the most recent, or does that go July, August?
All 3 months.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So the items you mentioned here in the past few minutes that you were having a problem with, did anybody capture those?
LGIP, bias, and single point.
Okay.
And then the translation from desktop to laptop programming.
Mm.
Because I have email access on the laptop, but not on the desktop. So when I do the work on the desktop and then try to move it over,
The one back here?
yes.
Yeah.
And why are you going back and forth? Just because the desktop is the only one that's operating bias correctly?
The only one's operating the Excel correctly.
Oh, okay.
I don't have access to bias right now. Like I said, I have my login credentials,
Thank you.
and it worked on there.
Okay.
However,
Okay. Any other questions for Sage?
I do plan on taking some time off from that position. I have vacation time I have to use. I do plan on coming down during business hours and trying to get a lot of this cleared up. Because
Wonderful.
I'm frustrated.
Well, anything we can do to help.
No, and I'm not
Mayor,
frustrated
that's-
at anyone. It just feels like I'm not doing what I was assigned. And I don't like that feeling.
And these roadblocks can drive you nuts, and they're hard. Sometimes they're easy to solve
yes.
with the right people.
I will tell you though that everything's fine on the accounts from what I can see, and the statements, and making sure that transfers are happening. Because I don't have the single point access, I've been doing manual transfers at the branch, standing back, having another person process the transaction, making sure that all the checks clear.
Thank you. I was going
winner-
to ask about that without having access. How do we know that?
There's been some hurdles,
Okay.
but
Got it.
everything has cleared and been taken care of.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sage. Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's ever been presented before, but I just happened to notice a mistake that I didn't catch, I believe. If, on a spelling of a name, I guess I could ask the person there in the audience.
M-A-R-G?
Do you spell M-A-R-G-E for Marge, or is there E on Marge or not? Your first name.
Just E.
M-A-R-G-E. Okay, that was left off on both copies, and I do apologize to council for not picking up on that. I don't know if that's even
It's,
possible to,
I'll bet you that's something when you type in M, it comes up with her name.
Yeah.
That's probably in the computer that way that
You can move to amend.
Okay.
Okay. Anytime, what, I move to amend the
What document was that?
September 14th,
Minutes.
2022 City Council meeting minutes. The spelling of Marge Womack, to add an E to the end of her name, first name.
I'll second it, David.
Okay, thanks. I looked at both copies here, and it didn't stand out until I was just,
They looked at it again.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Probably need to vote on that.
So we've had a motion to amend the minutes for September 14th
In a second.
and a second to include an E on the end of March. Yeah. All in favor?
Boy,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, 4-0. Let's get back to the agenda here. Resolution 238, 2022. That was the one I was referring to earlier to you, David.
Yep.
And what we want to do per Cynthia Wall is to just pass a resolution to change that date to the June 20th, or is it July? June 20th. That was the first day that we were on site digging in Jim Sackett's backyard.
Okay.
And if we do that, very possibly we will be able to get the state to go along with going back to that date and put that $46,000 that we paid under the grant. Because it was a later date when we actually started the emergency notice.
So,
what was,
go ahead.
what was the date of the original resolution?
Thank you.
Uh,
Was it a resolution, or did we just declare emergency?
No, there was a resolution that we voted on in the emergency meeting.
I thought so, yeah.
Let's see if I can.
That was my question. Did a good job.
July.
It was,
So we're being asked to
July.
backdate the start of the emergency declaration to the day of June 20th.
yes.
Who's made the request?
Who made the request?
Yeah, that we amend it.
Cynthia Wall, Cynthia Fuller, who works for the Department of Commerce.
So do we have resolution text then that we're voting on for amending? Or is that,
Yeah.
well, but this is
Typed up, and it's,
the original resolution though.
I'm pulling it up right now.
I don't believe so.
it just says amending the declaration of emergency, and that's what the question was, when did we originally, the only resolution we have of that event, what date, was it
That
in
was
July?
It was a,
July 21st is when I saved it on my computer.
it was a special session
Right.
that we had in the early afternoon
Yeah,
on like a Thursday.
yeah, it was,
We met in here on a Wednesday, and I think we all met, we had to post it for 24 hours.
I guess I'm just not sure that we can amend a resolution in that fashion. I would have thought that if we're going to amend a resolution, we need to reference the original resolution that we're amending, because this is worded as though we're superseding the previous amendment without referencing the one that was passed or the current state of emergency when it was, the reference to what state of emergency we are amending to backdate.
This is
Trying to think of
238.
how I,
So the resolution, as I have it saved here, was 236
okay.
on July 21st.
Like, I think this would need a line to say something like, Resolution 236 is amended as follows. Because this is a resolution that is amending an unreferenced state of emergency. We know what it is here and now because we were there when it was passed, but in terms of the wording of this, to make sure that the documentation can go back with it, is that the amendment should reference, we are referencing 236 and we're changing it in the following ways, I think.
Changing it or delete, we can't delete it, we can't do it.
We're amending it.
Amending
We're
it.
amending it.
And this, is, if you want to see, David, this is what we originally.
Yeah, I was here when you guys wrote that up.
I think Stephen wrote it up rather quickly, if I remember correctly.
I wrote it and then you formatted it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking at it, it's going to just. But, it doesn't have a date printed into it.
If you want to scroll 2 fingers on the mouse track.
Oh,
2.
okay. By the way, David. Yeah, so what we were suggesting is that in this amendment here that we have to reference.
The
Yeah.
original date.
Well, I would just say that Resolution 236 is amended as follows.
And it doesn't need its separate resolution 238 then?
Well, it would
Well.
still be 238, but we're giving reference so
Right.
that a person 20 years from now could look at the document and say, okay, 238 is here to amend 236. What did 236 originally say? This is the change they were looking to make.
The only, I'm fine with that, except, I don't know, auditing and stuff, if they're gonna come back and say, if they are, hopefully they're not listening, but why did you guys do that? You know, I don't know if that'll bite us in the behind or
Well,
not.
that's another thing that it seems odd to amend the start date of a state of emergency. I guess that's, but there is also, I'm assuming that Cynthia's position, she wouldn't be asking us to do something that was illegal. I'm not familiar with the procedure of backdating a state of emergency.
Could passage of this resolution affect the status of funds or services we've already received?
I think we're hoping that it will. That ones that we haven't received yet.
It is worthy of noting that the original declaration did not mention a date that this emergency had started.
It's true, it only says when the leak was discovered and when this was adopted. I guess the start date of it is
So do we,
implied.
so we don't even need to really do a amended or 238 then? If you fill in the dates.
So it says
Well, we
June
would still be
20th on
needing
there.
to amend the resolution, but we wouldn't technically be backdating it because I guess the thought is that we can't backdate something that we didn't actually set the start date of. We're not changing the start date if we didn't actually set one. We're just adding a start date to the
What do you have,
declaration of
Dennis?
emergency that
This
we...
is the new one, but
The one I'm looking at too.
yes.
So,
I'll take responsibility for that. If I ever have to draft a state of emergency for the city again, I will note to put a start date on it.
I guess, what, somewhere in our files, does it state a date? I mean, where is it, Water Lake, June 30th? I mean, why?
See, saying,
Again, here's
Thank you.
Here's what we approved, and as you see, there's no date on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess my question is what are we trying to, why are we trying to amend it?
Trying to amend this so that if we go back to the original date, the reason we were
Right?
told we couldn't claim that $46,000 from DW was that we did that before the date the emergency was declared.
Well, okay,
No, I
got it, got that. So actually, if we go back to June 20th, 2022, that was the day of the emergency, right?
That's when it started.
So we don't really need any of this, it's just that's the date of it, and
What's the date that we approved again?
July 21st.
July.
Yeah. And we were invited on the property on June 20th to look at the leak. That was the first day we were ever on that property.
well, as soon as,
But the state, you know what the state's saying? The state's saying, we got this grant here we're giving you. And until it was approved, you can't claim any of the money that you've spent already to solve the problem.
I think it had to do with that cultural resource review also.
Well,
there was a timeline.
That didn't happen. We
once
didn't
the
get it
leak
approved.
started by hiring DW, that didn't make it worse and go, crud, we got emergency, I mean, we just dug it open, now it's blowing everywhere. Actually, the emergency started
Months ago. Months ago.
upon not recognition, but upon the revelation that you have a leak there.
Which was June 20th.
Right. And the actual leak probably started before that, but it was
Way
undetected.
before. Correct.
But I just wonder how much, or my question is, how many documents, if this goes away and we just fill in 236, the date of June 20th on there, and there you go, see, there it is. What other documents do we say that, oh, no, we signed it and we declared it a month later?
So are you suggesting we, instead of having this 238, we just amend 236?
Or just
As a
fill
document?
in the date?
Which would still require another resolution. 238 is going to need to be there.
Okay. So to put a date in, we've got a resolution that we has to pass, if we want to have that date in.
Because there's nothing on 236 given a,
Stating a date when the leak started.
well, yes, well, it does say leak discovered June 20th, 2022. Council,
Excuse me, David.
go ahead. You're fine. You didn't. No worries. Well, there's a difference between the date we discovered the emergency and there's a date that we claimed or made a declaration of emergency.
That's correct.
And they're nitpicking, saying that, well, it has to be from the date we declared an emergency.
That's right.
Right.
According to Cynthia, that could make the difference on whether the money would be allowed or not.
Right. Well, that's a sizable amount for the city of Harrington, so.
I think we may be on thin ice with this.
Could be, but is this a question, now that you mentioned that and brought that, is on my mind too. Is this maybe a legal, a half an hour legal question? Are we gonna get our butt in the ringer?
I don't know. I couldn't answer that.
In my opinion, the statements on here are correct.
It's just, the date of June 20th is correct, I agree. But the date that we declared emergency
Is the
is subjective. Or open up for interpretation, or
I'm
whatever
trying
you
to
want to
find
call
some
it.
official definitions, but unfortunately now after COVID, if you Google state of emergency, all you find is COVID for pages and pages.
Well, just say the water line had COVID then.
I mean, it's true that what ended up becoming our emergency was present on June 20th. To state when we declared the emergency, when we were aware of it as an emergency, is perhaps different.
Well, it was emergency because you were jumping through hoops to even find DW, somebody to come.
That part's true.
When did we actually incur those charges?
Oh, in the first week and a half, 2 weeks of July?
Does he have a?
Oh, yeah, of course, I'm sure we
So
could.
here's what I would say.
I could go back and,
In the absence of being
records.
able to find anything more official so far, I don't think I could vote for saying that our state of emergency started on the day that we discovered the leak or when we were invited onto the property, because we discover a lot of leaks and are invited onto other properties, and we don't know that they're all emergency, and we can't get into a mode of thinking that we're going to preemptively call all of them an emergency just because we might need to get funding down the line. But I would say that we knew that it was an emergency before we incurred a charge from DW. I can say that ethically, that by the time we were incurring charges from DW, we knew this was an emergency, because that is not normal. So what I can say is that while I couldn't vote for June 20th as the date of starting the emergency, I could vote for having it be before DW was called, which I think still is what Cynthia's looking for, right?
Right. Well, I would agree to that to some extent, but given the location underneath the railroad and all that, I think that would be a heightened urgency, because it involved that if it was a leak on the streets, people can avoid that. But where we noticed it coming out of the underneath the railroad bed and involving that.
So your point is basically, how could it end up as anything other than an emergency given its location?
Right, because of the.
Yeah, that's
The,
fair. It's not like we were ever going to just hope that it went away and stopped leaking.
And you couldn't really ignore it because it put
Yeah.
the commerce, trains and everybody.
That's true. You're right. There are other leaks in other locations in town where it would have been an emergency or not, but I don't know how that one would have ever ended up being anything other than an emergency. BNSF would have had to have been far more generous with letting us dig on their
Yeah.
land.
that's June
Would have been the only way
30th,
we
when
could
our
have got out of
backhoe was
that
stuck
without
in the
an
mud.
emergency.
Right.
Yeah.
Question?
I
can
would
buy
have
that
to go
one.
back and formulate some timelines there.
Well, that'd be my suggestion, because, I know as soon as you found it, and then it was a biggie, because then the railroad knew about it, and they, that set the wheels in motion, and then there was a lot of head
railroad-
scratching going on.
The railroad actually knew the first day we were there, because that was the first time of 2 times that we cut the wires and shut the railroad down. So
Right.
they're quite aware of the date when this started. And they didn't charge us for that. But I can go back and get dates. And I think I probably ought to call Cynthia Wall,
Is it Wall or Fuller? What's it?
Fuller Wall,
Fuller, okay.
or
Well,
Wall Fuller. Yeah, Jerry.
I've seen
The
her.
only reason we declared the state of emergency is because we were told to by the Department of Commerce in July,
Yeah.
because nobody had even thought of that up to that point, except for the mayor, who was constantly calling the railroad and everybody else and saying, we got a big problem.
So,
The state of emergency opened it up so that we had access.
Anything until we had water coming up at the tracks. We were telling them for weeks, what can we do?
Yeah. The state of emergency, what it did was open up a lot of other avenues for people to get involved.
yeah, we showed up there on the Wednesday, the 20th. The 21st is when we all met here at around noon. that Friday was when DW started dropping off equipment and piping, and they worked over the weekend, because I've got a picture here of when the line blew on Monday morning.
Because we didn't know the extent of damage, we didn't know what it was gonna do, if it was gonna go, so I would still stick with my original, that being at the location and the type, and seemed like it was getting worse. We didn't know if it was gonna blow the whole thing wide open, which it could have.
Yeah. That was before it came down the whole hillside.
Given it long enough, it probably would have.
Well, yeah. And if we go back to here,
Yep.
there is where it was bubbling up through the tracks.
I mean, even the railroad was going 10 miles an hour through here, and, well, it's because of the power or whatever, but
That's July 20th, whether that's the date or not, I'd have to go through some things and find
But I
out.
guess when did DW show up? I guess that's the question. I think that was,
I've got that in another book. You mean the first time?
yeah, so I mean, to make, our goal is for this, his bill, 46,000 something,
Yeah,
to be covered by the state of emergency funds.
correct.
So I guess, when did he start billing that? When did he start?
Well, like I said, he wasn't on site until after we passed the emergency resolution. I mean, he may have been on site, but he wasn't starting to position equipment and materials until after.
Well, I would say, yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
know why we even have to. Unless I'm missing something here.
Because the part of the reason we declared the emergency was because the request for the emergency funds.
Oh, I know why we did it, but
Yeah, but that application had not been approved yet.
if we need to declare emergency before he steps foot on here and starts charging us, that looks like it happened by what you're saying.
We
So
did.
we wouldn't need to really,
I think the
in my
issue.
mind, go backdate anything, because we declared one and he moved his stuff in here, and that's the charge.
True. I think it had to do with some timing with regard to when the emergency grant was approved versus when we started spending money.
Well, I agree with that, but that's not what I'm getting from, well, let's see here, that's not what Cynthia is asking for.
And I think Cynthia is kind of looking for a Hail Mary, to put it delicately.
Water leak at Sackwitz, June 20th.
The documents will speak for themselves,
Whatsoever, no.
and if we declared it at a certain date instead of a lot of chicanery going on, I mean, we'll have to probably stick with that. We just gotta prove when he showed up, if it was after the fact, after we declared it.
Yeah, for
What's Cynthia's position, Jess? What office is she working?
I would love to call her, but I hazard to do that tonight.
She's with the Department of Commerce.
Is she commerce or college? She's a commerce.
Commerce.
Yeah.
Did she hand us the verbiage of the resolution, or is that generated internally?
Of this,
I would have to check on my emails to tell you that.
you're talking about this one right here?
Yes.
Resolution 238, the one we're discussing.
Yeah, I would have to go back and check, start building some facts to get you hardcore information. I think we're gonna have to table this until we get some more information.
I'll second that. I don't know.
Well, I think you're moving that because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jess can't make them.
I know,
No.
I know.
Well, I don't think we have a motion on the floor to begin
I
with.
think you,
Clarification out of Cynthia,
well, moved the table as
Whether-
valid to an
Okay.
agenda item.
when we declared it, I mean, we kind of know when that was, and when did DW start?
So I've got on the 6th here, we were talking to Marissa, who is DW.
We might not get all of it, but we could probably get part of it, partial. If it was itemized out, or I mean, I'm sure it was.
Jeff Yunt and Mark Scott Hutzel were involved Thursday, 4 hours of the main, Scotty.
And that was in July?
Yeah, we were in July by this time. Called Scott from the site. We met at the site with Derek, Joe, Stephen, and Peter. That was on July 21st.
Those are the days.
Yeah.
And the railroad.
And if I remember correctly, all of a sudden we just left out there and we came into the office.
It was over lunchtime.
Yeah, the 22nd, 23rd, 22nd, we had the back truck stuck up there. Install date, the 23rd is the day we installed we re-glued the bab pipe again on the 24th. That was an 18-hour day. 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. After it blew apart, it was hooked up again. Derek headed to Spokane to get parts, So July was a busy month.
Yes, it was.
You remember when the water first breached the Sackett storage building?
So that was back around the 20th.
June 20th.
Yeah, June 20th. That's when he came and I went down there in the morning and there was 4 inches of water standing in his backyard. And it was already coming in the back of the building underground, leaching through.
And was it the city, do I assume correctly, that excavated the 3 leaks?
That was our attempt to find the water leak.
Yeah.
I think I finally found the RCW at hand, which is strangely in Title 38 under military stuff. Preferred council emergency And it doesn't say anything about declaring a start date. It's in Title 38, Chapter 52, in case anyone's interested.
Have we even tried to make that, or submit that to?
Yes.
Come back, okay.
And they declined it.
Okay, that was, you may have mentioned that, sorry, I just,
PWB at the state declined that because it was prior to the start of the
Well, I think we need a little bit more guidance, but I buy David's argument about the leak always having to be an emergency, perhaps just not fully manifest yet. Also, in a less egregious backdate as far as the duration of how far we'd be moving it back, to me it's very clear that we were in a state of emergency before DW was called. So I have no problem setting a start date sometime before that, even if we can't go all the way to June 20th. That was, I believe, the intent when we got together.
Right.
So.
What are you reading, Your Honor?
Well, an email that came about the state of emergency. The actual,
Well, here we go at 7/23/22, around 4 p.m. Janice Jance meets from EDC, upload a special request for emergency funds to public board, who is having a meeting on this coming Monday morning. The action required several hours from Janice, a special city council meeting to enact a state of emergency. Thanks, Janice, for the extra effort. An update from Derek Wilson Excavating has given a rough estimate of $35,000 for her work. And that's on 7/23.
So,
I don't know if that helps anybody. It kind of, he was given a rough estimate of the work, and one of the workers from DW sent his wife to Wenatchee for the last load of pipe needed to finish our fix.
is that the one that, did I send that?
This, I'm not sure who sent that. That is from the mayor. You bet.
That sounded like the one that I sent.
Well, and that's 7/24 you sent it out.
Yeah.
So 7, far as, I don't know what,
7/21 is when it says here that we,
I don't know what the state's or these people's problem is anyways for the time date of state of emergency, honestly.
so in the interest of moving on,
Good.
I think we need to get some better. I don't hear the schedule being challenged at all. Nobody's questioning when it was discovered, when we did what we did.
When did the announcement go out?
Well, here we go, right here. I spoke with Derek Wilson, sorry, Troy. This is an email, and it's dated City Council update, water leak, 2nd in Maine, 7/22/22, so the 22nd of July.
Yeah.
I spoke with Derek Wilson of DW Excavating this afternoon. They will be starting tomorrow, 7 a.m. on our job site. So, to me, that's when today PVC pipe and additional equipment has arrived. So, really, how much did Wilson do? It was all our public works guy and Scotty that did the playing the mud
Derek
there,
started
working the
after,
mud.
after 7/20, the third week in July is when we started with the contractor.
Yeah, so
July
it's the 20. I would
So
say.
it's actually after, well, the 21st is the day we called it a state of
So I
emergency.
would agree that I don't know why there would need to be a change. We didn't incur any of these costs before the state of emergency.
Right. That's.
We didn't even start the ball rolling on any of these costs before the state of emergency. And while I grant you, state of emergency probably should have had a start date in it, that's my bad, but the implication was that it started immediately. So, I mean, if she needs us to amend the resolution to actually put the start date at the 21st on it, then sure, that's, but.
Can we table this until maybe we can get a better clarification of
I said everybody.
what the date.
Yeah,
So-
I think we all agree on that. Do we have I don't think we ever had a motion to start this, did we? We just
Well, it's an
started the
agenda item,
discussion.
so, and then I believe
Yeah.
that David actually moved to table. I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion to table this until the next meeting, which would be the 26th, I believe, of October. October 26th, Wednesday.
Are you gonna contact Cynthia again?
Yes, I will contact her in the morning and find out more about it, and I think we probably need to dig up the,
Invoice from DW.
well, we've got that part,
Yeah.
yeah, and we need to dig up the letter from the State Public Works that said, no, you can't do that, and because. So we have their input as to why they denied it,
Correct. I think it
and then we can attack it a different angle. So we've got a motion to table this till the next meeting. Any further discussion?
Does it require a vote?
Yes.
Yes. To table it till the 26th of October.
You have a second?
Yes.
Okay.
All in favor of tabling this till the 26th?
Aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Thank you, gentlemen. We shall table this event until the 26th of October. And we'll attack it with a lot more information. Okay. The chicken ordinance is on here, and without Levi, he has the only copy that I know of that has the actual verbiage, unless you copied that down too.
I may have scanned it.
The problem we have with that is that the chicken ordinance has never been completed and updated, and if you go to our files right now, when anybody asks about the chicken ordinance, it will show you the old one,
Right.
not the new and amended chicken ordinance.
Is the push for the roosters explaining that part?
That, just the whole thing was
Okay. 'Cause
pretty ambiguous from 30 years ago.
I think I saw an excerpt from it.
So this is a copy of
319.
Levi's one that was being voted on, where he made the handwritten
Yeah.
changes.
And it was voted on as amended.
Right, well, somewhere in there, I did see it addressing roosters, but not right in the meat of the
Well, it
ordinance.
says that it calls them male chickens or something.
But it was a paragraph or several sentences
Here we
out
are.
of context. I don't know if this is the same document or not.
This is the one that Levi sat here and scratched his notes on as you guys were reviewing it.
Okay, and then,
A maximum of 6 chickens. And what does that say above it? Female?
female, yeah. Should just say hens.
I don't know if there is a male and a female chicken. I think one might be,
Rooster and a hen.
maybe.
We're live, Jess.
Huh?
We're live.
Who's the chicken from? One's Kentucky and one is Yolk's chicken. And
Some of them identified as ducks.
I'm not saying a word.
It's probably wise.
I saw something in here where it did say something about no roosters, but I don't know if I'm getting that
think it was
confused
at the
with
top.
Reardon's or.
I think it says something there will be nothing that cockadoodle doos or something in there somewhere.
I'll keep it.
Well, keeping in mind, regardless of how a person may feel at this point about what is in there or not, our current records of that ordinance are not accurate.
That's correct.
I agree with that.
So we need to make sure that it gets brought up to vote, to represent what was actually voted on, and then if we need to revise it again, that would be a separate effort.
I don't know if we need any motion from the floor to do this.
Well, we don't have, is this all we have? Sorry, I
I
didn't
mean,
know.
I'm sure we have notes, we haven't dug up the notes from this date.
So when I was trying to find it, I found this.
Have you looked at it? The original one in the three? I think I did a long time ago, but darn it.
This is what ended up getting filed.
Okay.
So I believe this is 319, or no, it amends 319. 319 is our city codes for zoning. The problem is this is what got filed in the second page. If you scroll down the second page, it is it's signed, but that top page contradicts what Levi had written down.
Yeah, there's the original,
So-
502.
My recommendation would be that the council pass a resolution to show our intent that that is the document that we voted on.
Levi's.
Yes,
Okay.
because without such a vote, theoretically, a person could contest that Levi wrote on it, or that there's this, that, the other thing, because we don't have a chain of custody, so to speak, of the document's veracity of what we what we voted on anymore. So I think it would be appropriate for the council to reaffirm, to say, this is the document we voted on. At that point, when we've established the identity of the vote, we're not actually passing the ordinance again, we're affirming what text represents the ordinance.
Where did the follow-up document arise, come from?
Levi's personal files.
Ordinance 502 goes back to 319.
I think, ooh,
Is it in the form
okay,
of-
well, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mr. Davenport.
Is it in the form of a resolution? I've forgotten the
It is an ordinance. I recommended a resolution to affirm that that is the text of the ordinance that we voted on.
Okay, under F, section 4, letter F, the following uses are prohibited in the R1 zone.
Right.
D, keeping of animals, livestock, or poultry, including roosters,
Yeah.
except the following uses which shall be permitted use and therefore allowed without a conditional use permit. Household pets for general enjoyment, a maximum of 6 chickens are permitted. So that's why I saw, it does mention roosters, so.
Yeah.
So if you read, it covers that part. I don't know what was your, what
That's
was the other-
502.
Yeah,
And 502 is amending 319.
did you see that, Joe? Or you have it,
Oh, yeah.
somebody highlighted that.
Yeah, that's this one.
So that addresses
Okay.
that, but I don't know if that was your goal or if that was the,
There were two parts. Okay, just
It's also, it says it's 4 and it's actually 6.
so we need an amendment to replace 319 with 502?
No.
I think this is all done. It's just never been completed. Nobody ever updated it with the new language. It was never written down, codified.
Well, I was just trying to get to one ordinance instead of having to dig in Pandora's box all the time and a lockbox here and this. I mean, like we've run into, we've had like.
Well, and this already does replace the old one.
I am the choir.
well,
I know.
it amended 319 because
Because it's a partial text of the nuisance ordinance.
it's removing parts of 319,
Right.
replacing it with this section.
Right, right.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
4, and I think it was 6.
So we
Yeah.
we basically need a
Needs to be cleaned up.
An ordinance, a chicken ordinance by its standalone ordinance and out of 319. Because what else does 319 give us?
It's this, actually, 502.
Well, 319.
What's its title? What is it? A
It's-
nuisance or?
It's an ordinance, okay, 319 is an ordinance of the City of Harrington providing zoning and land use and adopting comprehensive zoning ordinances. It's our zoning
It's kinda
ordinance
throwing
from
everything in.
1989.
Let's throw every kettle and pot in there.
What date was
The
that?
13th day of December 1989 is when our zoning laws went into it. And what they did, instead of writing a whole new ordinance, they went in to amend.
I would suggest that before we do anything, I mean, we have everything here,
This is,
because, go ahead, Mike.
this is when this one was approved, in 2020.
Right, is that we're gonna have to, council's gonna have to sit down, in my opinion, and we're gonna have to revisit the meat of this, the zoning.
I would
and the
agree, but
use permits.
I think that's a separate issue, because if someone was to walk in and say, I want the text of the ordinance that you guys voted on, we're currently unable to provide that.
Yeah, this is what we came up with.
Right, but right now that is hearsay, until the council affirms that that was the copy that we voted on.
Do we have minutes to go back to and look? and see
Yeah,
what
I'm
we
sure
have?
we do.
I agree with you, Stephen, but I somewhat see a need to either we compile it all in one, or we have two separate addressing this, because that 319 is for building codes and what else was adopted, use, identifying zones, uses, and all that. So my question is, do we need a chicken ordinance in that uses thing, or do we just need a standalone chicken ordinance? I guess you could put it all in one.
I think you got
On a
one now,
section.
David.
Right, but as to Stephen's question, is why, I mean, if somebody asked about it, we couldn't produce them one. So this could be a standalone document, and then 319, because we have a ton of work to do on 319.
This probably is 2 or 3 hours worth of work
Yeah.
to come up
I
with
think
this.
the only question before the council right now is what document represents the text of what we voted on. I would agree that we might need a separate effort in ordinances to clean that up and to maybe separate or consolidate depending on how a person views it. But if we affirm that that was the text, then we actually know what text was voted on for that ordinance number.
The only way we could do that is minutes, possibly.
Yeah,
If the minutes were taken with that level of detail. I don't know that the minutes would have taken down all of the amendments that were thrown out in the course of discussion.
over back when Bunny was still here.
No, because David and I were on council and chicken ordinance was voted on, so that would be Janice.
Excuse me.
That would have been one of the first, if not the first
Yep,
ordinance.
Janice
that we
Sapita.
passed.
But that was by phone too. We never got on, we never sat
Correct.
in the
That
seat
was-
for a year.
You sent it to Josh Grant. And I don't know, this is Nathan Luck.
Yep, that sounds
Yeah.
right.
And that was on the 8th day of July, 2020.
Yeah, so we were just fresh off the press, and it was all by phone. So it would be recorded. Maybe,
That's right, that's.
because nobody was
No.
here.
Well, maybe. If it was recorded, it would have been recorded on the physical tapes. Because remember, our first attempt at digitally meeting after COVID was not Zoom. We had conference calls.
Yeah,
And the conference calls didn't provide any YouTube stream or recording capability, so the only recording that would have existed is if Nathan or Janice actually held a recorder within proximity to a phone.
did they,
That little recorder.
And if we still have the tape, I
Yeah.
don't know if we do or it could be found.
It's in the right-hand drawer there.
Oh, yeah.
well, that would be my only advice,
Yeah.
is to rely on that, or go back and look for an actual, what people said, and the intent, and things like that. And if that's not gonna work, then we just have to get together and draft one up and vote on it, you know. File 13 it and proceed.
So I guess we have a motion to table that as well then.
Table that to our next, I'll second that.
So we got a motion to table the chicken ordinance till October 26th, and it's been seconded by David. Any further discussion?
I'm good.
I'm good.
You good, Peter?
I'm good.
He's good.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? 4-0. Okay, we're gonna table the chicken ordinance. Next on the agenda is the nuisance ordinance. The nuisance ordinance, I don't have a copy here. I've got the man who I think has led that charge sitting right next to me.
Well, as far as I remember, it was turned over to get,
It's all been now brought up to date. There's no more X's. This is not the,
however, was there something that the Department of Ecology had to do something
no.
for noise abatement?
Reason that we don't have to do that is we only had to do that if we changed
The parameters
the
of it.
parameters,
Okay,
and
that's
we
what-
didn't.
Yeah.
So it was okay to go with it as it is, and the next thing that I needed to get information from you, we were gonna take this back to Andy Mankey.
Yep.
Andy Mankey, and I couldn't tell you what we were gonna take it back to him for.
He was gonna take it before the district court, the powers to be, and have it, I don't know, he didn't use the word codified, but he had some other lingo. But anyways,
Enter it into that digital system.
yes, it's, escapes me, I apologize.
Codify it.
No, it was not JAG, or it's one of those things that it's in the system and it throws a code. Everything in here will have a number specific to Harrington to when you talk about it, report it, it's on the code tickets or whatever,
I think
and
he
it's
gave an
recognized.
example that if like John Evans was up by the park, well, he didn't mention John. I'm putting John's name on that just because John's the one who sits in town more than probably any other deputy. But if John was up by the city park and we had an ordinance against dogs pooping in the park without it being cleaned up, and he saw it and wanted to do a search to see if we had such an ordinance, he could, from his squad car, search our ordinance or our nuisance ordinance to see if it would fall under that, and he could cite the person right there.
Correct.
Though Mankey did say that that's not common for a deputy to look into that because we were talking about specific things like keeping the park free of poop, and he said that's probably not something we should rely on.
But to add to that, that's a good point, thanks for remembering that, is that if there's a vehicle needs to be towed or any other circumstance, it would be that's in our ordinance, they could write it up and it goes through, and the court's powers to be will recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the next step is to get a hold of Mr. Andy
Okay,
and say, here you go, do your magic.
give him a call and ask him what he wants to
Right.
be brought to him. I need to get him a copy that
Right.
doesn't have all of this
So the
highlighted.
other
That's printed out, I've got that now.
The other thing that he emphasized in that call is that he felt like one of the next steps after we passed that ordinance was to be to appoint the CEO,
Yes.
because he said then he wanted to have, or he was offering to spend some time with that person to bring them up to speed on the procedures. So
Right.
we can give him that document and have him put it in the system, but I doubt that's the main blocker for us right now. I'm guessing that's probably happens pretty quickly. They can't reject it or anything. They'll just process it and be done with it. we're gonna have a far larger task ahead of us trying to figure out who we would want to put into that position.
Into that position, and do we want it 12 months of the year, or just part-time like we had it?
So we spent a lot of money on the nuisance ordinance, and we have a severe need for it
I'd say
to
so.
be able to move forward with it. Jerry and I this week have gone out and met with several of our constituents here and about water, sewer, garbage bills. So we took the half a dozen of them and went out and met with those people. And we're hoping to get some response back on that. But there's several issues that need to be dealt with that we need a CFO. CEO.
CEO. Code enforcement officer? Or
Yes, CEO.
The only
Well,
question,
excuse me.
go ahead, go right ahead.
Is the CEO being hired in part to police the bills that are in arrears?
I think they'll probably take over that operation too, the door hangers.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay. So I will put that on my list tomorrow. I'll call Andy and get an update from him. And I'll get back with you what his,
Did Bing, attorney, David Bingman, did he take a final look at this or not? Do we know?
What document is that? David?
well,
This is ordinance 505, our nuisance
we got
ordinance.
this one here. We got these charges for sure were against that. The nuisance violation on draft template. So these 4 times are all ones that he dealt with that.
Okay.
So I think he's looked at a lot of things.
Right.
This will be next topic we're gonna talk about.
So, yeah, we just have to get a hold of Andy and,
I would have a suspicion that we can make a decision between this few 4, missing one, and we can do this without possibly incurring hundreds of dollars more of legal advice.
We already approved this.
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's good. I mean,
It's good to be published, it should be.
should be, the only question, we didn't change anything.
We
One thing
changed
that
the
we
fee
changed
structure.
is the fees as the recommendation because they're basically doubled when they get to the courts.
Yep.
And other than that, I think it's a go.
Okay. Do you want a copy of that?
Sure, Jerry, is this for the mayor to send in, or you guys, or did copy for me?
That's for you to take to Mr. Menke.
I can.
I have a copy. I'm trying to copy that too, and if you want electronic, you can have it also.
He didn't get you.
This week's so wasted anyways, for 3 days, I'm not getting a darn thing done. Well, I am, but I'm not.
So we're not really looking for an action on the nuisance order. It was more discussion, and the action has already come about here.
I think we're good.
Okay? Next issue on our agenda, City Hall location. Is there anybody who would like to speak to that?
By the direction of your face, I would think that you're probably intending that would be me.
Loud and clear.
Yeah, so it is not a new effort for us to explore alternative locations for the City Hall. We talked about the building over there. The city council members toured that building and we had discussion on that. As I recall, the price was a significant consideration and the terms were difficult for us to come to a point of agreement on. And then I think, as far as I recall, that just kind of trailed off at that point without any official up or down vote. There is another alternative that there is a limited window on. In terms of the US Bank building, for us to be able to move in there. So my intent is that, having toured that building, Joe was also there as we toured that building. I reached out to David, but with various things with harvest and seeding and what have you, we didn't make that work yet. But the intent would be that next meeting we would bring that to an up and down vote to see if there is an appetite to move to that building. So within the next 2 weeks, if you would need to tour that building in order to inform your vote, or you would have specific concerns that could be prepared for the meeting discussion, I would certainly make myself available to try to at least make sure that you are prepared for a well-informed vote on that, but I do intend to bring that to a vote. The building, the new owners are looking to establish who's going to be there, so it won't be open forever. So we do need to get in or get out in terms of that. So I don't know if, in terms of additions to agenda, one of the things that we had looked into is how do we offset some of the costs that would incur. I do have some separate discussion points when we get to additions and agenda about some of the ways that I have thought of to try to recover some of those costs in other areas. I know Joe was looking into some possibilities in terms of copier and a few other things that we had discussed in terms of some savings that would hopefully reduce any additional incurred costs. But I would say, I find it unfortunate lately that the library board has not received the access in the manner that we were, in the time frame that we were hoping and intending. And one of the reasons why is because that we share the same building, and there was access to files that we could not potentially put into jeopardy without the proper ability to secure them. Sharing the same space with the library, I think, especially with the library board's desire to revitalize the library and to expand the vision there, I see that it's going to be harder to occupy the same space as time goes on. I would think they would find that as frustrating in some areas as we would, because we're looking to do more with what we have available to us in terms of meeting areas and whatnot for the city, and they're looking to do more in terms of what they can display and access to the building and everything. And so I think it actually is mutually beneficial to both the library board and us to have two separate spaces. So I'm sure everyone will have questions as far as what will inform their vote in terms of an up or down vote on that facility. If you want to schedule a touring time or something, I'd be happy to make sure that gets set up. But is there any other questions now in terms of the intent? I don't think we need to hash out how a person is going to vote at this point, but does everyone understand the concept and what we'll be going towards in terms of a vote next meeting?
Has anybody considered putting the library in the bank building and keeping City Hall where it is?
I have not heard that mentioned. So the answer to that might be no. I have not considered that. I will need to consider that.
Have emails been sent out on this issue?
No.
Do we have to go into executive session to hear what the
Values.
monthly rent would be?
I think next month.
That would be as a part of the discussion next meeting.
Yeah.
I think you're
Next
right.
meeting, you want to do that on the 26th?
That would be my intent.
Yeah.
That would be my request for the agenda as the mayor sets the agenda.
Okay. I have no problem with that, but I think I would only add one thing for clarification. We not only share the same building, we share the same room. So it's not like you have a whole building here and we each have a section. We're all in the same room. So but it doesn't always work well.
Yeah. You mentioned that we should be prepared to make a well-informed vote, but we can't do that without knowing what the rent
Parameters?
will be.
Yeah.
Are you proposing we buy the building or rent it, or
No, that we
are
would,
both opportunities?
that we would rent it, and as a part of a discussion in executive session, we could talk about how much the city would be prepared to, if any, offer for its monthly rent. That would be a part of the discussion, but I think there would be two parts. One, to establish, does the city have any appetite of intent towards it? Because there's certainly no point in discussing a rate if the majority of the council doesn't even want to move. So I think we can establish intent in open session. If the council establishes intent, then in executive session, which by law, anything that just like when we set rates for our tenants, if we are the tenants, we can discuss in a closed session how much we're prepared to offer for such a rent.
And just to answer, Stephen, some months before it was sold, I did have a chance to tour it and see what was in there, and I'll hold comments till executive at this time.
Okay.
So, concerning that part.
Sure. And to be clear, my intent at this point is not to push the council a particular direction. It's my understanding is the owners are looking to get our intent towards it. So council might well establish that they have no intent towards that building. That's fine. At least we can let them know that.
Well, is the intent to rent the whole building,
It'd be just the lower floor.
the lower floor,
With
and the basement possibly? Or,
Yeah, possibly.
yeah,
The basement would have its own concerns.
yes.
And then as far as the main floor, there would be provisions for the fact that there is an ATM in there now, but my understanding is that that would have a minimal impact on us, especially with the intended renovations of that building. The ATM's components would be locked away behind something that really would not. I do not understand currently how it would impact us very much, but that would be an exclusion of the main floor, that the ATM would have another purpose.
Well, the only thing I'm really concerned, well, one of the concerns I will share is that if it's viewed as, or talked about just the one floor, the main level, there's potential to rent out other spaces, and we could find, but we could potentially find ourselves in the same position as here, other businesses interfering with city work.
We could have other tenants in the same building, but to Jess's point, we wouldn't find any other tenants in the same room. But you're right. I mean, I guess you could have
The upstairs would have its own
noisy
clear
upstairs
and-
neighbors.
Yeah, noisy upstairs neighbors, but it would have its own entrance.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
know that
even the
it is.
ATM was, the way it was described to me, it would literally be walled off in its own space, that the only people that could get into that space wouldn't even be us, it would be ATM workers, security, what have you. The access to the city hall they would not be able to get in. They would put in a double door system
Yes.
so that they'd be able to walk into a foyer and that ATM worker go into that room from that foyer, but not access City Hall.
But you're right. There still is a potential for
Yeah.
impacts of other uses of the building.
Yeah.
Especially like if we didn't say, I don't know if we explicitly asked the question about the downstairs, if someone else rents the downstairs potentially. I don't even know if that's something the owner is thinking of doing, but I believe the only entrance to that would be through our space. So yeah, I mean, There are considerations, although I will say that in terms of the downstairs, they are planning on doing renovations, so they could add a different access to the downstairs or something, I guess, if they wanted to. This is also probably why getting our concerns to a point of communication earlier than later, before they would potentially enter into contracting for renovations, it would be good to try and set those expectations early for them.
I believe the back door would access downstairs or upstairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Present
fire
time.
code, I don't know, we'd have to,
Yeah.
you would need escapes. And the vault, anything about the vault, talking about that? Is
We
that
would have access to that, which I think,
exclusive, or I just wonder?
Yes.
I believe so.
Yeah. I believe their intent, just the cost involved with removing the vault door, I don't think that would happen. It would probably be pinned open in such a way so it couldn't be closed. But that space would be available to us,
And
including the
those
locked
lock boxes.
cages within it.
It's a little bit bigger than the mayor's office now, right? The vault, lock them in there.
Oh,
but I think the
I was in there and didn't care for it a lot.
Yeah.
I can't tell you why.
It's not as big as I thought it was.
no.
It's big enough, but the door's plenty heavy.
Yeah.
For an old guy, I'm concerned about.
I think the vault area could be extremely useful for us, especially now that we carry more cash sometimes, and with the absence of a bank building in town, or a bank in town.
And given that, the job, we know the other one, but is there anybody have ideas on any other spot, vacant lot, building? Potential,
Oh, to
No.
move to?
yes.
I haven't explored anything else yet, but if the council doesn't express an intent towards the U.S. Bank building, I will continue to look for other buildings. I am convinced of the value of us moving out of City Hall, so I will continue to look at any avenue that achieves that.
You're thinking we should be on a vacant lot somewhere?
No, I mean, if you have to build,
Oh,
because we do have buildings, but one, are they gonna sell them? Two, they're dilapidated.
yes, we've looked at
So-
a couple of them that are,
City shop.
Yeah.
Move in with you.
You know, so,
Be fine.
Yeah.
It needs to be upgraded anyways.
I mean, even this
Or
place
updated.
is
The city clerk should get a vote, since the city clerk
Hey, it has a good
pays
heater.
160 hours a month.
but that's
City clerk should get a vote.
something to look at, the cost effectiveness. What's it gonna cost the city? Because we have the library, we're still on the hook. I mean, what's it gonna do to
our budget.
yeah.
Do we know, is the library planning to expand?
I don't think the library board has discussed this issue, to my knowledge.
Not to my knowledge either, but it would stand to reason that if we weren't here, they would have another 200 square feet here, and plus whatever the back room and downstairs offered them. I don't see them not using it.
Who would, just a hypothetical, who would be responsible for repairing the sewer or leaks or lighting, anything, maintaining?
Here?
Yes.
That wouldn't change, that'd still be us.
Yeah.
But at the new building, that would not be us, that would be the owner of the building.
What about moving it upstairs or renovating one of the rooms upstairs?
Talking about this place?
Because I understand that we don't own the upstairs, do we?
I believe we do, but I'll let you climb those stairs.
I was gonna say, you're
Well, there's a structure, I believe there's we never did an assessment on that, but I think a building engineering, from an engineering standpoint for safety, if it'll hold 100 people or 50 people or whatever.
Yeah.
well, and just the sheer cost of making it ADA compliant.
You need to get another elevator.
Yeah.
And the floors of this building and the next building, which share the common wall, are about 1.5 feet different. That was already explored. They have an elevator over there, but
Yeah. So we'll bring this up 26th?
On
you
the
said?
26th. Done?
Yep.
Done. Mayor's comments, I have very few. Are working forward on our water line. The advertisement is out now. We haven't received any bids, but they will be next Thursday, the 20th at 2 o'clock, when the bids will be opened.
Is it common that we haven't received any bids yet?
Well, it's my understanding from some people that contractors may be here at 1:55 completing their bids in our parking lot. That's a typical method that
Okay.
contractors do. And they'll walk in with their bid at 1:58 and submit it before 2 o'clock.
Okey doke.
So, other than that, we've had no problems with our above ground line. It's covered. It's getting cooler. And I haven't heard any idea of when the start date for construction could be. We might have an idea. As I was told here yesterday, it would probably be the meeting after the bids were opened, so the 26th or the 20th. It would probably be at least the following week before we heard who was the person who was chosen. So that could be unveiled, maybe on the 26th, October 26th.
So if I'm getting this correctly, there's no way in which we possibly start before December 1st? Under the best of circumstances?
Well, no, I wouldn't say that. As soon as they pick, I don't know.
We have to, as a council on the 26th, we have to award.
Award.
So we should be prepared again on the 26th to be
Right.
ready to do that. I think we're still waiting for final permit from BNSF. I can tell you, from my
Maybe
point of
spring.
view, they've approved our
Yes, it
insurance,
could be.
which was a big hurdle. So that's done. So it's between the engineer and BNSF, so we're just waiting for that timeline.
And I got an email from you, they accepted our insurance.
Yes,
So our insurance that you put together and put forth met BNSF's,
yes.
all of
There are
their,
2 pages
criteria.
of requirements, yes.
excellent. Yeah,
Yes.
good job.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Additional items to add to the agenda.
I would like to talk about technology stuff. Specifically phones. I get
You've
to go
got the floor.
right away? Okay.
You've got the floor.
So it does have a bit of an attachment to the US Bank stuff because, like I said, the costs that would be incurred to move to not just US Bank. It would have been, we would have had to have paid for that building, or if we would go to an empty lot and build, as David threw out there. Doesn't really matter where. Anywhere else is going to require some money. So how do we afford that? One of the ways that I was looking at is some of the bills that we do have a bit potential to change, and one of them is our CenturyLink bill, and the other of them is our Inland Cellular bill. So I'll talk about those as 2 separate items, and I would like to make clear that my participation in trying to get rid of these bills is not dependent upon anyone's vote. We can save this money regardless of whether we stay here or not, and I'm more than happy to see the city save this money whether we stay here or not. So yes, it was prompted out of trying to save money to be able to justify this move, but I'm not holding the city hostage for this benefit, just to be clear. So for the CenturyLink, there is a service that Google provides called Google Voice. They provide free local and long distance for any Google Voice number. I've had a number of organizations in town and some people that I have given tech advice to use Google Voice, and it's worked very well for friends and family and organizations for many, many years. Google has a bit more obligation towards it than some of their products because it's also has a tie-in with their cell phone offering service of Google Fi. At least they use it as a part of that. So they have more long-term commitment to this service. And right now we pay, is it $140 a month to CenturyLink, I believe, for 2 lines. One of them is the voice line and one of them is the fax line, I believe. The first step, I would think, in this is we could move our voice line to Google Voice. And I haven't looked at the itemized bill from CenturyLink, but I would assume that would reduce our costs there by half. Once that is done and is successful, we could look at moving our fax line, which should theoretically be possible, but fax is a little bit different than voice. I'd have to take that on its own terms. So, a couple trade-offs. Really the only not great thing about Google Voice, to a certain extent, which I talked about this with Jess, I don't think it really matters, is that it doesn't have 911 service. But most all of us have cell phones that have 911, and even if you want to, I think you can pay, it's like $10 a year to add on 911 service to it, if it's really a big deal. Which I would note that if one line at CenturyLink is currently costing us $70 a month, then $10 a year, and please don't quote me on that, I didn't come in here with that number, I can look it up. It's fairly cheap and it's per year, I know that. It doesn't stand anything compared to what we're paying per month. The benefits with Google Voice is not only is it free, but it's also internet-based, so if we were to move to any other location, we don't have to make any type of a hardwire change as we would with CenturyLink to have them actually move the hardwired copper line, the connection from here to anywhere else, so that's kind of nice. It provides a transcribed voicemail, so if a voicemail comes in on the weekend, it'll actually show up transcribed in Jerry's inbox that he could get, or anyone else with it, that we would have send to it. There's a number of little bells and whistles that for call recording and that kind of stuff that we can do with it. But the main attraction is being free, and I think that probably everyone on this council is interested in taking a $70 a month bill and making it go away, I would assume. But part of why I'm bringing this up is I don't think we need to vote on this, because I think some of these charges, like the cell phone charge, was, to my memory, incurred without a vote of the council. It was something that Nathan informed the council as to his intent, and it's under the mayor's prerogative to incur such charges or not. And then the council either approves the charges or not when we approve claims. So I wanted to get your guys' intention and blessing towards this direction, because the primary concern with this is getting our number 253-4345 from CenturyLink to Google Voice. Without trying to get too technical to this, Google Voice only allows you to port in mobile numbers. That is a landline number. There is a way to take a landline number and turn it into a mobile number. We can go to T-Mobile and we can say, hey, I want you to take 253-4345 and move it to a T-Mobile cell phone. And with the appropriate PIN number and maybe a few other details to prove our identity, they should be able to do that within the course of a day. Then we have a mobile number. Then we port that mobile number to Google Voice, and we're there. Along the way, we incur probably about $40 or $50 of one-time activation charges as it moves from one thing to another, and we have 2 periods of time where the phone is not accessible or usable and could not take a call. Hopefully, if I instigate both of those on Fridays, we're not down at any time that the office hours are open. Though I would note that we won't receive any voicemail during that time either. And there is a small chance that while I have researched this and I have seen posts online of people who have claimed to move a CenturyLink number all the way through to Google Voice successfully, there is a chance we could lose our number in the process. Yeah, I think it's a small chance, but I just want to cover my bases here to say those are the risks. So, the first part of this on the CenturyLink line, would the council be okay with, and again, this is not a vote because I think technically Jess can just decide to do this, but is there the council's backing to the concept that we try this? and take whatever risk there may be towards that and the potential downtime. I will do my best to minimize any impacts, but I can't guarantee beyond the shadow of a doubt that it couldn't be down on the Monday morning. But I'm willing to put in the time and the movement on that so that we could hopefully, once we move the landline and the fax, save $2,000 a year for CenturyLink.
Well, even if we were stuck with a cell phone for a week, it's probably would work better than the lines that I see get used here during the week.
So that is, Joe, you
Yeah,
are on board.
I mean, if it saves money, we're not losing service, we're probably enhancing service. There's no reason I would decline.
Okay. David, what are your thoughts?
I'm 50-50, but, I mean, try it. You think there'll be a 50% savings on this?
Well, I think once,
That much annually for sure.
Savings?
Yeah.
I want to move the voice line first because fax can be a little bit more finicky than voice.
Do we get a lot of fax?
Thank you, I was gonna ask that.
I would
Just fax
suggest
first.
fax first, because it's not even being used.
Well, okay, there are other ways. There are online fax services where we don't even need to move our number. Okay, let me ask you this. For who
Oh, okay.
does send us a fax?
We haven't had a fax hooked up since I've been here.
Well,
For
then
how
we should
long,
just
Jerry?
drop that line altogether.
For how long have you not had a fax?
Over a year and a half that I know of.
Everything's email, isn't it?
Well, how do frustrated customers or citizens come in, where's your fax? Nobody asks about doing
He
that?
sends us elsewhere.
Yeah, we just send it back and
faxes
down.
anything anymore.
Yeah.
That's pretty much dead.
But generally what I'll do for the few people that have come in, I will scan it to my desktop and email it to their recipient with a note on it that it's coming from this person. And then they make a phone call, make sure it got there.
So we could do the fax line first as a test case. Although it sounds like once we're done and we pay the $40 to $60 in one-time fees, we probably might not ever use it again anyway. But we could run the test on it, see how that goes. It would just be that one-time money to have proof of concept before we actually mess with the voice line.
Do we currently have a separate number for the fax?
Mm-hmm.
You had to look
It
at this
doesn't,
one.
yeah.
It's in the bottom of our minutes.
And I guess what we could do is if we do ever move anywhere else and the library gets this all to themselves, we could take 2534345 for the city hall and the fax number could become the library number. So it wouldn't become,
Well, the library, in my opinion, probably should have their own.
right, so our fax, I guess what I'm saying is the one-time activation fees to move this through wouldn't be wasted because we might not ever use it for fax. But that doesn't mean we won't use a 253 number at all.
I can tell you my office has gone to a fax server, and when people send us a fax, it converts it into an email. And I look at it, and the only people that we are getting faxes from for the past year is going to be a bank, which inevitably sends us an email to back it up. Or spam. It's just junk.
Fax is pretty much gone.
With scanners and emails, it's just,
That's all I get asked for. If I mention fax, they start laughing. And, yeah.
we,
And they want your 8 tracks also?
Oh, my reel-to-reel. Yeah. No, I maybe on a different subject, but in town, it's been so long since I called a local number. Do you local phone to local phone? Do you have to dial 509 now for that?
I do from my cell phone.
Cell phones you do.
I don't know if a landline does or not.
Are landlines affected that way too?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have a fax down, no, I just have a cell phone down there.
I think I read, because it was made a splash, I have to dial 509 to call any number anymore.
Whether it's on a
Cell.
landline phone or
Yeah.
anything. I think, I seen it
Just
years ago,
on
we just
a cell phone.
Clifford 3 and then the number.
Even to access your messaging service, you have to use 509.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got VoIP at the office, but I read it was about 6 months ago, I think they came out in Spokane and made a big flash that if you're going to call local, you still have to dial 509 now.
No matter if it's landline or cellular.
They just, it
Yeah.
was across the board.
Okay, well,
So I guess then we can maybe modify the intent of this is to say, let's move the fax line, which we can't make any worse than it is right now because it's not even hooked up. So we can run it through the process and see how it goes and have that be a trial run. And because the good news is that monthly cost should go away any way you slice it, right?
Yeah, and if we lose that number, we haven't really lost anything.
Right.
Did you want to use one of the current cell phones we have? Or those are through inland cellular, not
I
T-Mobile.
can, but I have an extra cell phone we can move the fax line to, and at that point it won't even matter because I don't even need to hand that phone to anyone right now because no one's expecting to take a fax line call. It's not even hooked up to the machine to even be able to receive a fax, so we literally can't provide less service on that line than we are right now.
you just have to fake it.
So it sounds to me like I can terminate the cell phone service line.
Well, that's my second point, but Peter, are you okay with that direction then?
Yeah, I'd feel more comfortable if I knew what determines whether we lose our number or not. Is that up to the phone company?
There will be 3 parties involved with this, and it just needs to successfully move from one to one. But the thing is, if we start with the fax line, I don't know how much we would lose if we lose the fax number. If the fax number ports through successfully, then we have better cause to say, let's try the voice line because we know about the process. We walked it all the way through. We know exactly what the charges are, and we know exactly, hopefully, what the downtime is, assuming it ends up being repeatable. So, I mean...
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I commend you, Stephen, for...
Okay, so I'll move forward with that. So that then brings us to the second thing, which is the cell phones. We are currently paying for 2 cell phone lines to Inland Cellular, which we just actually approved another charge on our claims today.
$152 a month.
Neither of those phones are in service.
That's correct.
Well, yes, and practically that's true. From my understanding, Troy is not a big fan of Apple products, so he has decided to use his personal phone in favor of the city iPhone, and the second iPhone for the second Public Works employee, because we only recently started a second one and no one has expressed the need for him to have it. It has not been given to him. I still had it at my place for getting it re-imaged after it came back from Devon. So,
There are cheaper cell phones.
oh, there are, yeah, and well, but part of it is there. Well, there might be cheaper cell phones, but the other part of it is just paying for the service. And so, a potential position here is to say that neither of those lines need to be paid by the city anymore. I think that was Jess's contention, is that if Troy wants to use his personal line and that is true for Brandon as well, then we can drop both of those lines and those charges altogether. One thing that I brought up is part of the thought of why we paid for those lines in the first place was to ensure that our employees have a phone that is in working condition and a line that is paid up, and that we would never be in a position where the employee says, well, yeah, you couldn't reach me because my phone broke, or I didn't pay my cell phone bill this month, or what have you. So anyways, my discussions with Jess were this, that we could put a cell phone in place again pretty easily. I think it's not a decide at once for the next decade type decision. We can pay off, or I think Jess says that they're already paid off.
They're paid off. We're
Okay,
paying
so
for
the cell
service
phones
only.
themselves are ours, whether they have a service attached to them or not. So we can drop the service, and if we ever wanted to reinstate it, we can keep the phones and we could just turn the service on again if we ever wanted to do so. My concern then would be with the employees' views of, not just the employees' views, but any potential compensation towards how the employees are using their own lines. Jess had mentioned that to Troy that because of Freedom of Information Act, if the texts or emails were to be requested for freedom of information, that makes their personal devices subject to that. Similar to why the council got iPads, so that we weren't accessing our emails and what have you on our personal devices. And then the other thing is that if Troy is down in the wastewater water world, and something happens to his cell phone, it does not become the city's obligation to replace that. And Jess said that Troy had acknowledged that. I said to Jess that I was, and this is just my own personal viewpoint on it, I think if Troy and Brandon are willing to use their personal cell phones for work, that I would be happy to see them have a certain amount of a stipend for that purpose, but in exchange for acknowledging, not just as a, well, I talked to Troy and he said yes, but to acknowledge in a recorded form that those are our stipulations, to say you would be subject to freedom of information, we're not obligated to replace the phone.
I'll agree to that. That's easy. And as far as if you ever need the information off,
Yeah, run that
just
one
do
by the
Hillary
attorney.
Clinton. I mean, no.
What's that?
If even though you agree to it and all that, but legally, if we go that route, are we still some way liable for it?
Well, most
You
people
could
in town
promise.
already have my number, and they call me on this anyways.
Yeah.
I know there's ramifications both ways, but off the top of my head, I can't. 5 years ago, I could have answered them because I ran into it in my former job.
So I think we have two separate things at play there. One is, does the council back dropping both of those lines? To me, it sounds like, especially with the phones being paid off, it's just a savings, and if we need to turn them back on, we'll go to talk to Inland and we'll turn them back on. But I don't see that we need to keep paying for it month after month when Brandon doesn't even have possession of his and Troy isn't turning his on. Right?
It's
right
Or
there.
that, yeah. So
It's temporary.
that would be one, are we cutting the Inland bills? And then two, what is our intent towards the employees using their own phones in the absence of us providing them one? Which I would also state as, I believe, where we were back when Scott was here. For which he, I believe, received a stipend as well. So, so maybe we should address those separately. Does anyone have any objections on the council towards shutting off the two Inland phone services?
Based on the claims today, you're talking about $1,800 more a year. I like saving money, so I'd be up for it.
I'd say the sooner the better. Inland Cellular's voice messaging service is really poor. There's a long delay.
Yeah. David, you good with that?
I'm good. I use a flip phone, $35 a month.
There you go.
I don't have a walking computer. I mean, it'll text and stuff. So I mean,
Yeah.
150. That to me, that's what we're gonna be using
You
it
have to
for. It's on the
rotate
high
the
side.
phone in order to dial someone, right?
Yeah, well, I have one of those too.
Could get you a sticker.
And you know how old the kids are when they say, "What's this?"
So then I guess that brings us to the last issue then,
So,
and
no
we
problem.
don't probably have to settle that here tonight. but the intention of the city towards the employees that are using their cell phones for personal purposes.
Right, yeah.
Which, I mean, might not be outside of the realm of possibility that we would need to discuss. Does Jerry take work-related texts on his cell phone as well?
Well, most of that stuff's in a package, before, years ago when they had airtime and stuff, you'd charge for airtime and all that. Remember that? That would be more of a concern. I mean, that was, for them.
The airtime's really, I got unlimited, which really
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything nowadays, but
Yeah.
even now you got a test phone for Google
Yeah.
to see if it's gonna work.
So, no, I'm not opposed to terminating that current.
Are you familiar with Pure Talk?
Yeah, it was Pure Talk, it was cheaper.
Well, and I guess that comes down to the concept of does the city even feel the need anymore to provide a separate cell phone for the employees? I think something has to be said that if the employee is more, if the employee prefers their own phone more and has a tendency to give out to other people that number instead of their work number, it isn't going to work. You're never going to get, if the employee is always giving out their personal number instead of their work number, you're not paying for anything that's going to be useful. You have to have the employee buy-in or discipline, I guess, but one way or another, you're going to have the employee bought in to be able to even have that value come to fruition.
I'd say right now, Stephen and Mr. Davenport, that we go terminate these, and if the need arises in the future, we can we're not set in stone here. We can always activate
Turn them
that or
back on.
something of similar or whatever our needs are. We'll give it a trial.
Well, when the transition pretty much like when Scotty retired, everybody had his number, and then we just moved on to the next number.
Yeah,
Well, and one thing we could do is one of the features that's nice about Google Voice is we could get a local number, put it on Google Voice, and turn it on to forwarding. And that way, they could have a number, and then if you move on, we can just push that forward to another number. They would call the same number.
They're called forwarding.
Yeah, basically, it would just transparently go
Yeah.
through, and that way they would never have your personal number.
That would work.
And then
too.
if David comes in as the next PW1, we just set the phone ringing from your number to his, and the public never has to know the transition.
That
So-
sounds like an awesome idea. I
So
mean, that
I'll-
would even save a lot of headache for everybody, especially
Public-
you guys when you had to go in.
Public Works
Now-
just
now we
gets
got
transferred to
phone
him.
activated.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would
So maybe
save me
what I'll do
shutting
then
more
is
off.
so don't shut those numbers off right away. I'll port those two numbers that we already have to Google Voice so that we take those numbers with us. And then we'll shut those two contracts off. So that way we're taking local numbers with us.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes they want to give you something from,
Right, I don't want it to end up being a New Jersey number or something
Why
like
don't
that,
you-
because then caller ID, like if Troy calls someone, it's like, it calls from Virginia, and they're not gonna place it, so.
well, you might win a trip or a cruise on there.
Take
too.
that with you then,
Okay,
that unit too.
sure,
Then you got both of them.
yeah. What might be easiest, Jerry, if you can call inland, if no one has any objections, and put me as an official contact on that, because I'm gonna need to coordinate, like, they're gonna have to show proof of ownership that I have a reason to actually be making changes to the contract. So either I'm gonna have to go through you for all of that, or you can just say
He
he's a
hasn't
designated
been
owner on it, and then that way I can port it, and then I
He
can
hasn't
shut the whole
been
thing down when
in
we're done.
Wilbur.
Okay.
You don't need to be too official in there.
Okay, I think that's it for me, and I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for
Thanks for the
doing this.
presentation.
thanks a lot, Stephen, thank you.
Any other additions to the agenda?
None for me.
I think I want to go back to the mayor's comments for one moment and say that yesterday afternoon the locks came and I installed the locks and sent out an email this morning to the library board that they may now have keys to the city hall or to the library.
Thank you.
So there is a key here. There are 5 keys to this building and all 5 are accounted for. And the 5th one is in our locked cabinet over there. So I sent that out, and I guess the library board, I don't know if they're meeting tomorrow or not. Is that true?
I have no idea.
You haven't heard?
I am 98% certain they are not.
Okay, well, I sent an email out to the president of the board that the key was here, and Jerry has that available in that drawer at any time.
You, Jerry, Sage, library,
assistant clerk.
and backup.
Yes.
Treasury.
Yeah, Sage. Yeah.
Yep,
So those are the 5.
those are the 5 keys.
Okay.
You don't have a rental key?
No. No.
Valet.
And we are pretty, interested on who has a key, because, as I said, we're not in the same building, we're in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that everybody understand when you come in here, you have access to things that are private.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. I don't know if you fellas would like to go into executive session to talk about this or not.
What would we be talking about?
We would be talking about the charges that we have occurred so far and what we're gonna do with this account, and these bills are rolling in at a pretty good number every month. Anything possibly we may want to discuss talking about these as a group more than turning them over to somebody else at $200 an hour.
We would. There's only certain criteria we can take that to executive session with.
Money is one of them.
So we were discussing potentially entering into a contract with another client or another services provider. Is that
No, that's not my suggestion at this time. I think we need to be very careful when we call this person.
sure?
It's my understanding that there was 2 contacts for this person, and that we limit it that manner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if everybody, I think that was at a council meeting.
I'm not saying there isn't potentially something to discuss, but we can only go into executive session for,
Understood.
yeah.
May I offer a suggestion that maybe this is an opportunity to reinforce what the council had agreed to?
Okay,
Not officially,
I
but
don't
we had
have
agreed
minutes.
to in kind
yeah,
that contact should be limited to the city clerk and mayor unless otherwise brought up.
Wasn't there an MRSC bulletin or guidance on that? I know there was, but I can't, I'm not gonna dig for it now. But it addressed just that,
Okay?
who has access to the city attorney. And it's certainly not a free-for-all.
no, absolutely not.
And we don't intend to have that. I think the proper thing would say, get permission from the mayor. I've seen it both ways. I'm kind of speaking out of turn until I get that, find that in the RCWs or
Right.
MSRC, what it says about that. But I would say, yes, that we could pound out a lot of stuff in a workshop or whatever, but I would caution, none of us are lawyers, or, professional lawyer. We're all lawyers when we go home, But when applicable, I say that we could present them some for the final touch or blessing of a document. Example, the lease you know, we'll draw it up or, you know, whatever we want and say, legal, not legal. Do they give his blessing if something we forgot or should be added there? You know, stuff, I just use that as an example. But
Yeah.
for nitpicky stuff, no, or, I mean, I pull that up and look at that.
Using that as an example, you guys had a conversation, what is it gonna cost to get that built? And you guys, that was a conversation I ran to, and it was.
Well, we knew that it was gonna cost us a few shekels up front.
But that's the point, we
yeah.
knew, and so we would anticipate, there's nothing that we get blindsided with.
I'm just concerned some of the things that we're turning over are costing us a lot of money. When we start looking at nuisance ordinance every time we've done it here, we're probably well over $2,500 now for the nuisance ordinance.
Well, let's see.
And the review of the current utility shut-off policy, there was $400 right there. And I think some of these things are getting to the point that,
Seems to me the solution to this problem is just discipline in this office.
yeah. I mean, I got a charge for $19 for an attempt to call or email me.
What does that mean?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you tried to call me and then it says an attempt, yeah. I think we just need to be careful on, I think we need to call the lawyer with a lot less questions. Some of them maybe we don't need to worry about as much. I have some stuff looming out there right now that other people are telling me it's not a real big issue, like an agreement with a piece of property that's probably the most worthless scab land in the world, where we're going to put a slab on. And we're going to have a franchise agreement with somebody, and all the other cities in here have signed it. And I'm into it right now for $360, and I haven't seen any franchise agreement yet. So I'm beginning to think that I'm gonna go talk to one of the other mayors and find out why he thought it was okay for his city. Gonna check with him next week when I'm at the dentist. So I just think we need to be very careful, because this is $2,700 this month, and I think last month was over $2,000 too. Those are significant amounts of money for a little town like us to be generating for.
Can we are over budget?
So, that's all. I just wanted to bring that up.
That's the section you were talking about.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of,
That in the handbook?
Yeah,
yeah. That's it, yeah.
so it sounds like if
What's it about?
it continues to be.
Relationship with,
Yeah.
relationship with city attorney. And it kind of gives
It's in the
a brief
handbook.
description of the dynamics of how typically council, mayor should be
In this
contact.
document.
I think it's MSRC.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
their mayor and council handbook.
You should have a copy
Yeah,
of
it's
that
a-
book. I think I got one for
Thanks, Joe, for
everybody.
bringing that up.
The thing is, we don't have a city attorney in the office, in the building, City Hall.
Right.
It's a $200 an hour, and I'm not complaining about that either. That's fine and dandy. That's what his charge is. I'm just not sure we want to consume too many of his $200 an hours
Yeah.
each month. Okay. Public comments.
Finally.
No one?
Troy,
Update on Public Works. We're gonna have to start working on the snow plow to get that prepped. I don't know when the last time it's been running. The roof down there leaks. It should last through the winter. As soon as it freezes over, it should stop leaking.
What roof?
City shop.
Which part of the city shop?
Everywhere where there's a skylight?
In the shop or in the garage area?
In the shop. The garage I'm not concerned about, but the shop, it drips when it rains.
So it's probably not underneath the desk or over the desk where your chair is?
Recoat, tear out the skylights, all that old fiberglass see-through stuff, and put some actual metal.
Is that a flat roof up there? Flat roof? Or is it a peak?
Yeah, it's flat roof.
Okay. So we need to look into that.
That's
I've already got the snow plow down. You just haven't heard from me yet. That's on this listing here.
oh, okay.
But thank you for
That's-
bringing that up.
About it. No problem.
What is it? Stuff? Flex seal.
There you go. I think a roof might be cheaper.
Several
than
5-gallon buckets.
The modern duct tape.
Why are their boots stuck to the roof?
Any other comments from the public? No? Stan already gave me his work. Thanks for your due diligence on moving forward with gathering information on how to put everybody who's in the cemetery and owns property on a list. So,
That's just a real early version, but I think I've got, based on the time I spent in the index files last week, the card files. If I need to add additional column for any kind of information I run across that I haven't seen yet, when I start going through them, it's easy to do.
does anybody here have any idea of how many people are in our cemetery?
How many people are what?
How many people are in our cemetery?
There's 2 boxes of cards in your cupboard over here that are each that long.
Yeah, Stan thought there
those
might
are-
be a couple thousand possibly,
I'd-
which
Would
was,
be my guess,
that's
just a rough
pretty,
guess looking at cards.
pretty amazing to me, but, well,
Man, that's a lot.
well, without further ado, if somebody would like to call
What is the appropriate procedure for ending a meeting when
Chicken
Councilman
George.
Shank is not here?
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever had to do that.
Call
Levi.
I got 9:31 of
Move to
the
adjourn.
ordinance.
9:30.
I motion to adjourn.
So it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Well,
Ni-